After living through the storming of the capital of our nation in a coup attempt by neo-Nazi insurrectionists incited by the Commander-in-Chief of the United States military forces, it is crazy to think that it was anything other than a traitorous domestic terrorist operation bent on tearing down American democracy and all that goes with it. Without democracy, we will not survive. It's the only best chance we got. The tech industry knows what's going on. On January 8th, Center for Humane Technology released a statement regarding social media's role in the attack on the U.S. Capitol, stating, "The horrific attack is a clear example of what happens when unregulated social media platforms make it impossible for us to see the same set of facts and come to consensus on shared truth. The chaos right now is a product of disinformation. So who is to be held accountable?" I'd like to share with you a letter I just finished to a group of techies featured in the films The Social Dilemma and The Great Hack, to whom I'm giving a citizen's order to quicken the pace to change this world into something other than this current nightmare. I will be sending it to them directly, circulating it on social media platforms, and emailing it to government officials, and please feel free to do the same. As a United States citizen still living in a free democratic country, I make a call to action to techies with a conscience. You 50 or so nerdy computer coders who were recruited between 25 to 35 years of age, a decade back when you sold out, may have had high hopes to make the world a more integrative place through technology. But there are consequences for not harnessing this power to which you gave birth. Your intelligence is needed now more than ever to not harm the world, but to save it. I demand that any techies left with a conscience work together to rectify the situation at hand and immediately share their intelligence with people doing investigations as to how these social platforms created a civil war in an otherwise peaceful democratic country overnight. And in particular, the following intelligences who can make a difference. Brittany Kaiser, who is a whistleblower and leader of the hashtag Own Your Own Data campaign, and who also worked for the Obama election campaign as well as the Trump 2016 campaign through Cambridge Analytica, which bombarded Americans during 2016 with 5.9 million visual ads on Facebook, in contrast to Hillary's 66,000. Tristan Harris, former Google design ethicist and co-founder and president of Center for Humane Technology, who stated, "In the tech industry, we have created the tools to destabilize and erode the fabric of society in every country all at once, everywhere." Jaron Lanier, founder of Virtual Reality, computer scientist, and author of the book 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. Justin Rosenstein, Facebook former engineer, Google former engineer, and co-founder of Asana, who said, "We are on the fast track to dystopia." You should be scared and terrified, Justin. The visions I have seen are beyond your imagination and can only be witnessed in shamanic dismemberment or a psychotic break. But I had a vision of this 3 years ago, and I knew it was coming, and it's only just begun. And before I go into it all for everyone else, I have just one thing to say to the psychiatric institution. Do not ever call me crazy again in my own country and have me locked up in one of your concentration prison camps that your ugly, sinful party runs. Because now you just outed yourself. No matter how brainwashed everyone is, I will never accept again that I am crazy, especially when the same people look at this disgust and make excuses. Keep the mentally ill slackers, dissidents to status quo, schizo shamans and mystics, and the bipolar dreamers and artists out of sight and locked up, so that these vicious scumbags perpetrating seditious crimes against my American flag can litter the Capitol grounds with hate in full obscene view? Well, I will no longer be silenced. Is it crazy of me to think that being an American patriot means choosing the American flag over the Confederate one? These racist traitors ripped down the American flag and raised the Trump flag. This is communist China shit. Call it for what it is. White supremacy. Yes. Neo-Nazi fascism. Yes, you got it. That's KKK shit. One cannot feel anything but disgust when seeing that Confederate flag, and both white and black Americans should be outraged. But it's more the case that only some white people feel disgust and outrage. The Confederacy was united under the main platform of continuing slavery of black people in this country. That flag is a swastika to American Jews and whips and chains to our black Americans. And this rising, militant, neo-Nazi fascism organized racket that Trump pledged his love to, reinforcing to the nation how they were very special people, is not going away. They are armed, ready, able to organize, and on the move. We keep calling it systemic racism. Yes, and the deeper the FBI goes, the more Nazis they flush out, because the government is crawling with them like AI flies on Facebook walls. Guys, I ain't living in no Wild West USA in 2021. If you don't have interest in picking up arms and fighting these guys in hand-to-hand combat like the brave men in blue who were descended upon by these vultures and savages on January 6th, then you better use your noggins that caused the problem to begin with to solve this war, and fast. Because on Inauguration Day, they are planning to storm 50 U.S. capitals. What then? This is the Civil War nightmare you've all imagined. And you're specifically on record in the movie, Mr. Tim Kendall, Facebook former executive and Pinterest former president. When asked what you were most afraid of, you said, in the shortest time horizon, Civil War. So how did we get here? Trump's biggest mistake was that he got into politics, because he and his kind exposed the central problem at the heart of this ultra-capitalist, wolf-like, corporate, anything-for-profit, ruthless think tank that preys on the minds of the American people. The rights and privileges of gigantic, wealthy companies are more protected than all the individuals on Earth. It is wrong. And if it doesn't change immediately here in America right now, well, then kiss your freedom goodbye to the armies of underground militia that are gathering their gunpowder and who are on the move. We no longer have the luxury of time. We have days to influence because the singularity already happened and nobody even noticed. 3 years went by since our loss of internet neutrality in America in 2017. And since then, look at who is able to scream the loudest and be heard. Racist, ill-informed people in America. The main culprits of this abomination are the tech and broadcasting companies. With no regulation, no rules, and no competition, they are most responsible for creating a civil war in an otherwise peaceful, democratic country. They have proven they cannot regulate themselves. This profit at all costs business model first destroyed the environment, and now it has undone democracy. Rupert Murdoch and Mark Zuckerberg are most guilty. They are not above the law and cannot do whatever they want in this world. If their actions should kill innocent people, destroy the safety of millions, and unravel the very fabric of democracy. Murdoch's Fox News has destroyed families and ripped apart longtime friends with their propaganda machine, spewing disinformation. The Fairness Doctrine of the United States FCC, which was introduced in 1949, required broadcasters to offer contrasting points of view in discussing controversial matters of public interest in an honest, equitable, and balanced way. That year, communist forces were gaining power in China, and apartheid had become an official government policy in South Africa. But these were problems out there in all the other parts of the world. Now, propaganda was used on our own land against our own people who otherwise would choose democracy over fascism. The FCC eliminated the fairness doctrine in 1987, and ever since, there's been radical party polarization in America, and Fox News leads the way. Mark Zuckerberg's solution for all Facebook's problems is to build more AI tools and launch a robot AI army all over its walls to spy on people's habits and find patterns in people for third-person parties. And you're right, they are using these tools for nefarious purposes. Beyond sowing chaos and division in society, they are creating futures and destroying others with their predictions that have no meaning, sense, or morality at all. Trust me, if you think your freedom isn't at stake, you are in for a sad awakening. Come and join me on this side of having no rights and suffering violent oppression under their rule for almost 3 decades. Your idea of American freedom will never be the same again. Tristan Harris, you state, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And in my world, my bipolar label makes me a hot commodity for more experimental research. Published the same day, only hours before the storming of the Capitol last week on January 6th, on fiercehealthcare.com was the article, Northwell Health, Researchers Using Facebook Data and AI to Spot Early Stages of Severe Psychiatric Illness. Zucker Hillside Hospital in 2020 allowed the Feinstein Institutes for Medical Research to recruit patients while already in vulnerable and susceptible states to hand over 10 years' worth of Facebook and Instagram data for a study about how people with mental illness use social media. The goal of the study was to use machine algorithms created by IBM to predict a patient's psychiatric diagnosis more than a year in advance of an official diagnosis or stay in a hospital. The fortune-telling results were published December 3rd in Nature Partner Journal's Schizophrenia. Michael Birnbaum, assistant professor at Feinstein Institute's Institute of Behavioral Science, states in the article, essentially at its core, the machine learns to predict which group an individual belongs to, based on data that we feed it. Birnbaum explained. So, for example, if we show the computer a Facebook post and then we say to the computer, based on what you've learned so far and based on the patterns that you recognize, does this post belong to an individual with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder? Then the computer makes a prediction. Birnbaum also added that the greater the predictions and accuracy, the more effective the algorithms are at predicting which characteristics belong to which group of people. This is targeting and profiling groups at the most intrusive, undemocratic, and secretive level. And even though AI often shows a high degree of inaccuracy in its conclusions, especially with racial bias, we are told we need to accept these predictive results. When up until this moment, when the entire AI understanding of reality is through the lens of someone like me being mentally ill, their logic continues from there. Please go look at my Facebook page before January 31st when I delete it. Even if you don't agree with me on politics, I'm pretty cool, and I'm sure you'll probably enjoy my point of view as an artist. And that's what is becoming less and less relevant as I speak, while the violent racists scream louder than ever before. The Nazis would have won if they had a platform like social media, guys. And this is where we are. I've been trying to tell everyone for years that the ones locked up are not the crazy ones. These predictions are all wrong because we now see what crazy actually is after the scene of waving Confederate flags at the Capitol last Wednesday. It's time for a revision on what constitutes a mentally ill state of mind. Oh, that's right. It's too late. AI cannot learn like a human being. So everyone fucked up. Now it's their world. Well, I can't live in this body anymore with this identity in the books as a mental case. I can prove myself through my book and show very cleverly with facts, science, history, and humor that their science is fake and not based on any biomarkers, but rather on unsupported claims in white supremacist racial theory. But I need to be removed from AI's creepy crawly system before it's too late and they wipe me out of relevance for good, as they plan for the eradication of my bipolar kind throughout all of Facebook and beyond. In a nonsensical communication system of lies, only those with the truth can make any difference. Intelligence this time, human intelligence, needs to fix the problem and show the ill-informed the truth, because it is our responsibility as free Americans that we should do so to protect the country. As much as Mitch McConnell enabled Trump, in my book, he saved himself from hell and ruin because he stood up at the pulpit to offer the truth when it mattered most. So I sound out loud and clear a call to action to techies with a conscience to 1. Apply pressure for regulations, and hard, strict ones and fast, before it's too late. I don't have influence to get in front of Congress. Many of you do. We have a chance to set up firm legislation with the Democrats in Congress. You have a voice that demands authority, and it's a collective human voice, not a robotic hive mind chatbot. So it's you who are assigned to be a beacon of truth in the face of this civil rebellion. That's the only ammunition we've got, because we need to treat it as a war on democracy and an attack on literacy. Disable these engines and stop giving high momentum to these vicious agendas. Cripple them as the psychiatric institution has crippled me all these years. Now that COVID has brought our children inside attending school online, the principle of net neutrality needs to be reinstated. A free online information library system is essential, and the TV needs to be free of propaganda by reinstating the fairness doctrine. 2. Tell the truth and expose the evils to all. Tristan, you stated, if we can't agree what's true, then we can't navigate out of any of our problems. Only through truth can democracy work. People are anxious and about to bust loose as a reaction to the proliferation of the live viruses that are crawling all over the internet. With no internet neutrality in America, and with AI owning and manipulating everything we see with no human agenda. Just as Trump did and failed, we need to hit the courts and succeed, because we do have the evidence, and this cannot be allowed. And we have plenty of proof, just within 1 week of our lives, the world's lives, that tells the narrative of this reality in real time. It needs to be understood by as many people as possible, particularly the persuadables. There are still neutral, non-cable news stations out there who properly shared COVID information and without bias. That's the way news used to travel. 3. Create an AI-free communications system. AI bias with no neutrality is a recipe to illiteracy. We are unsafe here in America at this juncture because we lost our nation to illiteracy overnight. Mark Zuckerberg has stated before his vision was to connect the world, but for me, that meant the world of people. He no longer has interest in people, but in data sales and experimenting with the slithery spider of AI all over his invention, rather than encouraging the innovation of human beings. In his Senate Judiciary and Commerce Committee hearing on April 10, 2018, he embraced AI as the solution for all Facebook's problems. Despite Mark's efforts to reassure Congress that artificial intelligence can help find fake news and protect privacy, these are the very entities the AI beast thrives on. It is our human right to have a modern communication system without constant manipulative AI robot interaction. Nobody sane believes this will, in the long run, help human beings. We need to build ground up again, and you guys can call out for new talent willing to create an alternate reality. And if that's hard, we can figure it out. You created an entire universe out of nothing. You can imagine an alternate one. Techies with a conscience, you can make a difference. We need to survive. We need to rebuild. Give the human race a chance. We can't do it without you. They can do it without you. And they will. Be among the people. Let go of AI and create something new. If you know how and you don't do, you are responsible for the consequences of inaction. Mike Pence did the right thing in the end, but he was an agent throughout 4 years of inaction, which almost led to not only his own hanging by an angry mob, but also to the desecration of the Capitol, which he took an oath to protect. And what can we do? We need to know where to start. It needs to be more than a hashtag. If we were to lose online access, who are the advocacy groups and where do we find them? How do we organize and share our knowledge? How loud can we make our stand and where in the age of COVID? How do you create a truth campaign on the ground and in the street? Brittany, you know all about PSYOPs. What celebrities might be interested in pooling capital for new startup networks designed by new talent of the future? Create competition. Not everything should be designed for AI and robots. Built on the ideals, value judgments, and mistakes of the past. Guys, you are aware this is only going in one direction, right? And there is only a small window now of opportunity left because the singularity is right on our heels. And oops, there it just went. You get me? So I demand, as a United States citizen, a call to action to techies with a conscience. Do the right thing and save our nation's sanity. You got this.